Agile Manager Group, so who are we? We have currently more than 1,400 members, so we're very happy about that. Thank you everyone for joining us. Our vision is to be a leading resource for agile management coaching and best practices. And how do we do that? We bring you the right people in front of the table. We bring you the right speakers as Johanna today. And we hope that those people can give you the support, the latest trends and the tools for you to be efficient in what you're doing in your day-to-day. So we're a group of people, few organizers, Oscar, myself, Kalina, Jordan, Remy, Leila, and Seren. I'm not sure who is here currently. Oscar, for sure. Oscar, do you want to say hi very quickly?
Hi, everybody. My name is Oscar, and I founded this meetup with Kalina and my old colleagues, my teammates. So, guys, we're gonna take it so much fun because we have interesting subject for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Oscar. Do we have Jordan?
I don't think we are.
Yes, I'm here.
Ah,
hi.
Hey, Jordan.
Jordan, how are you?
You want to say hi?
Hi, welcome
Oh.
to every people. Enjoy this meeting. I hope you will have all that knowledge that you are coming for learn many things, and welcome.
Okay, thank you, Jordan. Do we have Remy, Leila, or Seren? Feel free to say hi. They're not here, huh?
Yes, she's not here. I want to thank you, Jordan, for tonight. And it's great.
All right, so just to let you know, everyone, we're really a mix of English and French-speaking group. So we are based in Montreal, Canada, and some of us speak mostly French, some of us use both languages. So I just wanted to give you an idea about the origins of the group and where we are based. So next meetup is coming on 27th of January. We'll have Woody Zuyo, and he'll be talking about estimates and no estimates. It's possible that we schedule something between now and 27th of January. So we're working on inviting other speakers who can talk about professional coaching and organizational change and agility. But once it's confirmed, we can announce that officially. So that's it. Johanna, you can take it from there.
Excellent. I'm going to share my screen. There we are. I'm going to organize. Good. I'm popping out the chat so I can see your chat now. I'm arranging on my other monitor. I know you've seen people do this before. So here's the deal. They said I could introduce myself, so I'm going to. I'm Johanna Rothman. You might know me as the Pragmatic Manager because that's the name of my email newsletter. I offer frank advice with practicality and pragmatism. I assume that you know your context best and that you can take my ideas and adapt them to fit your context, whether you're wanting to change or whether you're wanting to just be a little bit more effective. As you can tell, I write a lot of books, so blog and write articles, all kinds of stuff. So I'm going to talk today about Agile and Lean Program Management. And notice that the subtitle is Scaling Collaboration Across the Organization. If you have a question, please enter it in the chat. If I talk too fast, for those of you who speak mostly French, I apologize now, and I would like you to put something in the chat, and Oscar or Kalina will tell me so that I can slow down a little. All right, let's get going. Let me tell you a story about the very first program I managed. back in 1988, I worked at Symbolics, and we offered special purpose computers. Yes, that's what we did at the time. So we had special purpose computers. We ran Lisp on those computers, and it was rule-based systems, kind of the precursors to machine learning. So what were we going to do? We could not continue. Well, our customers did not want to buy special purpose computers any longer. So the first thing we did was we instead of going to a software only solution, we put Lisp on a chip for a Macintosh. So this was the MacIvory. I was the software program manager for that particular program. Now I also worked with the hardware program manager and the mechanical program manager and the overall program manager. But my job was primarily the software. We had, I think maybe 250 people doing software, maybe 30 or 40 people doing hardware, and maybe a couple dozen doing mechanical stuff. I see that there's a question, a raised hand. So Nanami, maybe you can ask your question in the chat so that we understand what the question is. So we had this very large program. And if you think about, you might say, how did you do that, Johanna, all the way back then? So I gathered everyone together for our kickoff meeting. And what I said to people was, you're all assigned to your different products, right? We had the operating system product. We had all the layered products, all the networking products, all that stuff. So we had everybody was associated with one product. And when I said to people in preparation for the kickoff meeting, if you want to be here at the kickoff meeting, please be here. If you don't want to be here, don't bother. Here's the agenda. We're gonna define the purpose of this program. We're going to define our interim deliverables, which was primarily a demo in August at a very important conference. I believe it was AAAI, the Association of Artificial Intelligence, right? That's how long ago this was. So I said, here's what we're going to do. If you want to be at this meeting, come. If you don't want to be at this meeting, don't come. We were all pretty much in the Cambridge, Massachusetts area. We had a few people out in California. They didn't even want us. They didn't bother calling in. We were just going to send them the minutes after the meeting. So I had this big meeting. Well, what I thought would be a big meeting, and 20 people showed up. And I said, oh, that's very interesting. Tell me more about why you're here and why all these other people are not here. And they said, well, we're the software project managers, we're the program managers. Our people trust us to bring back the information that you're going to discuss with us today and that we're all going to discuss today, which is really good, because anytime you try to do anything with 20 people, 20 people cannot make a decision, right? Let's just face that. We needed a smaller group of people to actually make decisions. So we had several programs inside the larger software program. We created a software program team. I was the delegate to the overall program team. So we had teams of people who actually managed all the decisions and managed all of the impediments across the organization. I asked people to deliver. We used continuous integration at that time, right? Everybody in the organization understood their job was to use continuous integration and what we would call internal continuous delivery. So when you came in the morning, the first thing you did was load patches. You did not run an old version of the software. And yes, we ate our own dog food. So that's what we did. We loaded patches every single day so we could all see everything everybody did every day. Some people still use sandboxes and wait a few days before they integrated. Yes, we still had that, but nobody waited even a week, right? So really think about that. This is back in 1988. I asked people what they would deliver on a monthly basis because I knew that we needed a demo at least as often as every month, right? So we had continuous integration. We did demos every month. And I just asked people, what will you deliver? And I did not use the word commit. I'm not really big on that word. I just wanted to know what people would deliver. And then we watched the product grow as we continued. So we did that, and we actually made the deadline. If you're wondering, how can I possibly remember the dates for this? We started this program on January 6th in 1988, and on August 22nd, we demoed the product at AAAI. It turns out I was also pregnant with my first child. She was born on October 21st. So the child hit the deadline, the program hit the deadline. Now we still had some work to do to productize this, but we managed all the long lead lines, all the long lead times for the hardware, all that stuff. And we did this with agile thinking and agile approaches, because agility is not new. So if I think about what worked in this particular program, we had a very clear program vision. We knew the product that we wanted, and we knew when it had to get done, right? At least a demoable version of it. We had very clear deliverables all the way throughout the project, or I should say the program. We had feature teams, not component teams, feature teams who delivered at least every single day, right? That was really key for us. And we used unit tests and system tests as support for the new development. We were not smart enough to use TDD. It's possible some people did. Most of us did not. However, we had extensive automated unit tests and system tests. And we had a respect and trust across the organization. I trusted the people to do the work that they said they would do, or to tell me if their work was at risk. And they trusted me to have their backs, to make sure that I didn't commit on behalf of them. So when I talk about program management, I'm talking about organizing and coordinating several projects results into one business deliverable. That business deliverable has significant value to the organization. I think of it as a product focus. And if you look at this particular image, this is the product that you want to deliver. You might have various projects, and you certainly have other deliverables, right? Because it's not just software. When you have multiple teams, you also probably have legal and marketing, and we also had training and sales. We had this product required everybody across the organization to collaborate. Now, I said that some of the projects in this program were also programs, and they had several feature sets that other people were responsible for and to, right? So think about this as a fractal kind of extension. You can have small programs with, say, 6 given feature sets. You can have smaller projects, all as part of a program. Now, what's very interesting is that the more people you have and the more of a product focus you need for all these people, the more risky everything is. So a project does not scale linearly to programs, right? A program is a different kind of the beast. And the longer and the larger the program, the more risky it is. So when we started this program in 1988, some of the people said, we can't possibly do this in 9 months. And I thought, you might be right. However, if we think that it's going to take us 18 months, we're not ever going to make all this stuff small enough to be able to do it in 9 months. We are not going to be able to do it. So that's one of the reasons that small stories, small increments, small projects, small teams, the smaller you make the pieces in any dimension, the less risk you have. You still have plenty of communication risk. So I'm going to talk about communication risk, but getting the stuff done, finishing work for the program, that's a lot riskier when you have small cross-functional collaborative teams.
Johanna,
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. So we have questions in the chat. How do you want to answer the questions at the end or during the presentation?
Well, I can answer some questions now. Is there one from Chris? Is that it?
Yeah, this one.
So Chris, you'll notice that so Chris's question is, given that many organizations are moving or have moved from project to product, do you still see the need for programs to coordinate in the same way? Programs are often composed of teams that are temporary, and we are keen to have more long-lived teams. So I should tell you, all of the teams here were long-lived, and all of the teams had a product focus. So when people focused on the platform, that was their product. When people focused on the network, that was their product. So we had long-lived teams, and we all came together in service of this overall new product. I happen to find value in thinking about programs and projects as a specific deliverable in the service of overall product. So, Chris, remind me if I don't do that at the end of this to either send you a link or as we go through more Q&A at the end, to send you a link about how I use products and projects and programs in service of products and long-lived teams. We did not, people stayed on these teams for years and years. They could move if they wanted to, but they stayed on their teams. Oh, all right. So I wanted to say that when I talk about scaling, right, a lot of people think about programs as needing to scale. I have found that when you scale process, you end up with a lot of bloat. And when you scale collaboration, you end up with a product. So I also find that programs are either in the complex or the complicated domain. And the more people you have, the more you have a complex domain, right? So if you've already done something like this particular product before, maybe you had a port of a product from one platform to another. Now you have a similar port. Maybe that's just complicated, especially if it's more than a couple of teams. However, most of the programs I see are in the complex domain. You might know what you want to finish, right? What is the product? What is the vision for the product? That teams already have a lot of understanding of their part of the product, right? But you need a merchant practice. I will not tell you that there is one right way to manage programs. There is not. I will tell you that lean thinking works a whole lot more than any kind of a process. So when I talk about agile teams, I'm talking about this kind of thinking, that we have ideas across the organization. They come into a responsible person. For a program, this is a product manager or a product value team. For a team, it's a product owner, product manager, product leader, right? some kind of a product, something. That person creates a ranked backlog. A cross-functional team produces increments of shippable product on a regular basis. At some point, the team does a demo and a retro, and they go back and get more work. Now, I happen to like teams producing shippable products every single day. I like one-day stories. I like teams that collaborate. I like the smallest possible cycle time from the time a team starts something until the time a team ends something, right? Delivers it. And I'm talking about delivering inside the organization at minimum. You might be able to deliver to your customers, but if you have hardware, probably not. And if you have certain kind of customers, maybe not. But you can definitely deliver inside the organization. That's what we did in 1988, every single day. Now, a lot of you will ask, so what do we need to do to scale from one team to many teams? And I will tell you that it requires autonomy. Every team has to choose how they work. However, all the teams need to collaborate among themselves, and they need ways to explore and experiment, because it does not matter how much preparation you do, something will surprise you. So the teams need to be able to solve problems where they are. The teams need to be able to talk to each other across the organization. And the team needs to, all the teams need to experiment so they can explore what they need to do. So I really like to think about sense making, right? This is using Cynefin again, by asking, where do we have unknowns? And what do we need to do to move from that unknown to something more known? And what principles will work for us? So that's where I really want to think about an experiment with. Where do we probe? What do we do as an experiment? What data do we gather? And then how can we respond to that probe? So when I talk about organizing the teams, I often say to teams, tell me how you are going to organize. I don't care how you organize. You can use iteration-based agility, great. You can use flow-based agility, great. What I care about is when you deliver into the code base, how frequently are you delivering? And I, now that I rarely work with hardware teams anymore, although I sometimes do. I mostly work with software teams. And when I work with those teams, I say, how much can you deliver every hour? And a lot of supposedly agile teams inside a program say, hourly, we can't deliver anything hourly. So I say, how often can you deliver every day? And they say, I often work with teams due to agility, and they often say to me, we can deliver once a week. I say, what would it take for you to deliver more often than that? And it's often a combination of making the things smaller, right? So that the stories are much more granular. And do we have all the people we need on this one team? Well, I have an image later about component teams. But if we have all the people we need on one team, we are much more likely to be able to deliver every single day at minimum internally. And that means that we need to evolve the architecture. As much as I would love to know that I could predict an architecture for this product in advance, I have never seen that. Now, we might be able to predict some pieces of the architecture, right? So when we did the McIvory, we had the footprint. We knew how we needed to make trade-offs for memory, for heat dissipation, all that stuff. But and we knew the outline of the software architecture. But we had done a bunch of experimentation in advance, and we iterated on that experimentation. So one of the biggest things about a program is that you really need to plan to replan. I'm going to talk more about that later. So when I think about what we want to see in programs, I want to be able to see progress. And that's that daily deliverables, frequent demos. How can we have pervasive communication between all the teams? How can the teams solve problems where they see the problems? How can they also tell the program teams, right, we have this impediment, fix it for us. And that means information has to flow freely around the organization. Now think about, I have seen a bunch of well-meaning programs who start off with Scrum, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with starting off in Scrum. However, what they do is every single team has their own stand-up every single day. Then the Scrum Masters have their stand-up, and the Scrum Masters have their stand-ups. So by the time all the masters are done standing up, the teams need the information from across the organization. The hierarchy means every single person is promoting problems up and over and then down, and then the answer has to come up and over and back down. That's not very useful. I want people to talk to each other as we go, right? So I want to see deliverables. I want to be able to demo it to other people. Now, let me ask you this. Think about this question. What's the most effective way to move information in your organization? In fact, maybe you can put that in the chat. I like that, Lucy, talking. I see that VJ has a question about interdependencies. I'm going to talk about that later with component teams. Face-to-face communication, that's really good. Discussion and inclusion, yeah. Open chat channels, that's really great. I find that open chat channels are useful. Jira and Confluence, okay. Bring people to the information instead of information to the people. Oh, that's very interesting. I really like that. Collaboration and problem solving. Stand up, okay. Trust and, yeah, I agree that trust and support is necessary. Combining team stand-ups, I actually prefer to work in without needing a stand-up, right? If you reduce your width for any given team and you have the entire team either working on something together or a couple of pieces of teams working on something together, you don't need a stand-up. So let me answer this question. The most effective way to manage information across the organization is the rumor mill, right? Think about it. If you have ever wanted to keep a secret, secrets do not withstand the rumor mill, right? So I find this so, oh yes, in Canada you spell it differently. Sorry, this is American spelling. People talk to each other, whether or not we set up formal ways to talk to each other. And what I find about this is that it's all dependent on the small world networks that we build. Now, when we were all somewhat in person, we built small world networks by talking with each other, having coffee with each other, sitting at lunch with each other. And now we have to do that very, very differently since we are mostly dispersed. And I'm not sure how many of you are back at work in a building now. I talked to a potential client yesterday who was mostly back, but not everybody is back. So there's this notion of small world networks where some people are more connected and some people are less connected. So these two teams on the very left here have only 2 connections to this team and 2 connections to that team. However, these teams over here are highly connected to each other. So everybody chooses how they like to connect. But what I find is this is, what is it called? The 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, that we are mostly 1 or 2 degrees away from each other in the organization, even in a large program. And that means you don't need a hierarchy if you take advantage of the small world network. So a person says, is it not risky to base our knowledge on the rumor mill? Absolutely it is. That's why we can use the rumor mill for facts, right? We use the connections we have already made across the organization to talk about the goal of the program, what we need this product to do, what people are going to deliver, how much work and progress we have, all that stuff.
Yeah,
Thomas
Johanna,
asked,
we have
yes.
the question from Thomas Lane. How do you deal with the team that enters the room and is just too big? Want to avoid up and over and encourage the direct and deliverable approach.
So when I find, Thomas, I'm going to ask you, how large is that team? Is that team more than 9 people? Because I guarantee you, if it's more than 9 people, it's not a team. I use Katzenbach's definition of a team that is small enough to work together, has a common deliverable, a common goal. They commit to each other about the work. There's more from Katzenbach, and of course I cannot remember all of it right now. But when I find that the team is too big, I ask the team to break themselves up. I say to them, here's what I would like. I would like a cross-functional team that is able to deliver slices of work through the architecture. I have a picture about that later. And when teams can deliver slices of work through the architecture and are hopefully 5 or 6 or 7 people, I don't like teams that are even 7 people large. I much prefer 5 or 6 people. Then I ask the teams to collaborate, right? They can work as a small program on this particular feature set, but they don't need to be this large team. I hope that explains it, Thomas. Okay. And if not, good. Okay. Excellent. So when I think about how I use small world networks, that's what I did in 1988. The feature teams took responsibility. I didn't ask them what they were going. I asked them to deliver something. I asked them to decide what they were going to do. And because they were able to talk to each other across the organization, we had small world networks that provided autonomy and collaboration for the entire program. We also had communities of practice. When I find we had very informal communities of practice, right? So we had a learning, we did not do lunch and learns because I really believe in lunch. And separately, I believe in learning. And I find it a little, I find it irritating when managers assume I am willing to give up my lunch to learn. I want an hour a week to learn with my colleagues. And I find that when we set aside a different hour to learn, aside from lunch, that we are much, much better off. So we had communities of practice where we learned all kinds of stuff all the time. Now, what I find interesting about roadmaps and backlogs is if you use them right, they can provide the team a whole lot of autonomy. But I find that a roadmap is really a wish list. And the backlogs, assuming that they are small backlogs, not more than a week or 2, maybe 3 or 4 weeks of backlog, that's what the teams can actually do. And if you rank them by value, then you know what you're going to do. You can think about learning as one of the most valuable things you can do, right? You don't always have to deliver something a customer can use. You can deliver something for learning. So let me talk a little bit about a typical roadmap I see for programs all the time. Got this quarter by quarter roadmap. It's often for 6 quarters at a time. You're going to have external releases at the end of every quarter. You notice how everything lines up, everything. I made this in a tool but everything is supposed to line up, and it's just going to line up on a quarter. But the reality is that some feature sets have more changes and some feature sets have fewer changes. Some features are more valuable than others. Things arrive at a different time. That leads to much more pressure on the teams to do more and to change. And if you're short-staffed, Amita says, if you're short-staffed, how does the backlog and the roadmap approach work across multiple projects? It does not. You need to do project portfolio management. You don't have one program with one product. You have a project portfolio problem. And yes, I wrote a book about that. I actually have a whole bunch of posts on my site about what to do with the project portfolio and unstaffed work at the portfolio level, at the enterprise level, and what to do at the personal level. And I am drafting a post right now that I hope to publish this week about what to do with a team for when people ask them to do more. Now, Bruno asks, wouldn't a roadmap established from a PI planning be a key deliverable based on quarterly needs? I would hope so. That's not been my experience. I guess what I want to know is, why would it be considered a wish list if it's something that the team and organization decides it should be delivered? So let's think about this from the backlog, right? From the arrival rate and things that you learn about the value. So here you decide what the value is in advance. You're learning about the value. And if you try and predict the value for an entire quarter at a time, if you really can predict the value an entire quarter at a time, you don't need agility. You need an incremental life cycle, right? Stage delivery, design to schedule, perfect life cycles, because you don't need agility. You don't need to react when you learn that some features are more valuable than others. You don't need to react when the arrival rate of changes has changed. You don't need to react. So if you can plan for a whole quarter, you don't need agility. That's really been my experience, which is why I like not more than 1 month rolling wave. So I offer time-based rolling wave planning and scope-based rolling wave planning. Let me take a drink. We're much more, we're all accustomed to thinking about rolling wave planning in terms of time, right? We're going to do these smaller stories inside of a walking skeleton. We do these smaller stories. To finish that walking skeleton, we demo, right? This is an iteration-based approach. As if we really have a 1 month rolling wave, we have these supposed deliverables, right? We're going to solve these supposed problems, but we do the detailed planning week by week. And so we say this is the 1 month that's in blue. We think we understand where we want to go. As we finish 1 week of specific detailed planning, we add more weeks to the end. Now, you might do a scope-based 1 quarter roadmap. That's where you say, we need this much for an MVP, right? And it's not everything that the teams can do. And then we draw a big black line, and then we have more possibilities. We know we want to solve these problems in month 2. That's our MVP. We have another big black line. We do the same thing for month 3. You don't have to use what I suggest. You can use anything that you prefer, but I am finding that a scope-based roadmap is more effective with my clients than a time-based roadmap. too often the time-based roadmaps say that, especially senior management, we're going to get this all done. Yeah, we can commit to it. I don't see that. But when people see and maybe there's a way to do a big black line in a time-based roadmap. I have not yet figured that out. Please improve upon what I offer you, and maybe you can do it. But the whole idea here is we have less, we commit to less, fewer things than we have capacity to do, right? So this is what I recommend. Lisa asked, is Scrum recommended in both of these examples, or would Kanban be better? That all goes to how much predictability you have for the work your team needs to do. If you can predict the work for a week or two at a time, Scrum is terrific, or any other iteration-based approach. If you have much less predictability for what comes in and you want to adapt more often, I would highly recommend Kanban, right? We go to prokanban.org. Yeah, prokanban.org for more information. I find that it's a wonderful way to think about less predictable work. And if you have predictability, that's fine. So what I want to think about for the program is that to think about changing, right? So when I asked people in 1988, what will you deliver next month that you will show us, that you can that you will demo for us? Sometimes the team said, no, we thought it was going to be this, but it turned out to be that. But we delivered it, right? We could see the change. We had fast feedback. We inspected and adapted, right? If you're not inspecting and adapting on a regular basis in the program, then you're not thinking about what do we need to do. So this is the value-based approach to product development, right? Not more predictability, but looking at value and saying, what do we do that's more valuable all the time as we proceed? Now, I happen to think that especially for when you're thinking about integration, when you're thinking about how all the pieces fit together, we need lean thinking, and I actually have a Kanban board. So this is a Kanban board for Joe, Tim, and Henry's feature teams for continuous integration. Now, why is there system tests on a local branch and waiting for integration? That's because one of my clients still has an integration team, right? I cannot seem to break them of this. They really like that integration team. So I say to them, every time you have something waiting for integration, you have, in effect, broken continuous integration and broken continuous delivery. And they say, we are managing our risks. We need to do this. So if this is what you have, make a Kanban board, put in WIP limits so that people see what's actually waiting. If you're not looking at the WIP all across the program, WIP is a work in progress. Sorry. If you're not looking at the WIP across the program, you might not realize where you have things waiting. I really like thinking about the idea of creating knowledge across the program. We can share the knowledge with our small world networks. We share it with continuous integration. We share it with our learning sessions, and that allows us to see the whole, right? So when I talk about lean, I'm talking about lean principles. Well, I happen to really love Kanban boards with WIP limits, especially if you have some kind of a phase or a staging operation. Now, I talked about that we, in the program I managed all those years ago, that we collaborated with test and integration. We had, this is a slicing through the architecture. And I find that when autonomous teams can deliver features by themselves, we have now safety to explore and experiment. We have all kinds of possibilities. we did not imagine before. However, you might have component teams. Now, I will tell you, this is the limit of my drawing ability. So this particular organization has the light blue people managing the GUI and the API, the dark blue people in the app layer, the green people managing the middleware, and the red people managing the platform. For those of you who are colorblind, I apologize. So, because I don't know how to do this without colors. So the way these people check in is the platform teams check in every single day. The middleware teams check in every single day. The app layer teams check in every single day. And the UI layer teams check in every single day. They are approximating these slices by checking in every single day. They don't always have finished features through the architecture, but at least they're checking in. So anytime you have component teams, I forget who I talked about. Somebody asked about that earlier in the chat. I don't remember. So anytime you have component teams, you will probably have delays for the slices in the architecture. So when I think about agility and how that changes program management, it used to be that managers would commit. Managers would promise features. Managers would shepherd the architecture. And instead, the teams manage their own commitments. The teams decide how they will build features. And the teams decide how they will evolve the architecture. And the more the teams are involved in the architecture, the more you need a small world network to talk about how everything does this. How do we succeed with the teams taking all this responsibility? And what does that mean that program management does? Program management removes obstacles and collects and explains the program status. So when I worked on the McIvory all those years ago, we had a core program team that managed the organizational risks and shepherded the product business value. So there was a program product owner, a program manager. I was the software product program manager. We had a hardware program manager. We actually had a salesperson and legal and marketing and finance on our core team, right? We had in HR and investor relations. So this is a core program team across the organization. We also had the software program team. So I was the software program manager. I worked a lot with the program architect and the program product owner. I don't care what you call these people, except I want you to stop using words like master, chief, or Uber. Right? I don't like those terms. They remind me of a hierarchy. I don't see how we don't need any more of a hierarchy in a software program or in any kind of a program. Sometimes the project managers, or if you're using Scrum, the Scrum masters, the leaders of the team will come and go to the software program team. Notice that there's deployment here, because every so often I find that teams cannot deploy on their own, that they have this central deployment. You need to have a deployment person here. And if Sally has a project which is a small program, Sally comes to the program team meeting. Now, what I find is that there's also these kind of orthogonal communities of practice, right? The program itself decides, do we need communities of practice for architecture? What about product value? What about tests? What about security? What about any of this stuff, right? And that's what this is all about. So the software program team removes obstacles and shepherds the business value of the product itself, right? Of the software itself. And I see that somebody says this reminds you of Management 3.0 and might also remind you of the Modern Management Made Easy books, which I wrote. So if you want to see the program progress, you got to look at program level measures. You cannot look at any one team, right? So the very first thing is to look at the working product. Can you run the product? And I happen to also like looking at features, complete, remaining, and total. Because what managers don't always realize is that the number of features increase as the program continues. And while we're finishing features, that's that red line, we are not burning down features as fast because we are adding to the features. So what about the use of org charts and flat hierarchies by swim lanes for differentiating roles in global, local, tactical, and support? I hesitate with swim lanes, but I'm not sure enough about what that is. If it's swim lanes for the program team itself, yeah, I think the swim lanes totally work. I'm assuming you're not talking about swim lanes for the actual feature teams or for the program team. I refuse to talk about safe. Now, the product backlog burnup chart is showing how much progress are we making on the feature sets, right? So in this particular this is either an iteration or interim date. I like to do this weekly if we're not using iterations. We can see how much have we started on feature set 1, right? And where are we as we proceed? Notice that by the 4th and the 5th, right, feature set 1 is maybe 3/4 done. I hesitate to say that, but feature set 1 is by the end is almost done. But look at what happened to feature set 2. Feature set 2 grew, and we have not yet started on feature set 3, right? So this is when you start looking at the product backlog burnup chart, especially across the program, you get a much better feel for what's going on. Now, I'm assuming that teams are working on feature sets by themselves. You might call this product, right? If a team is working on one small product, you might not call it a feature set, but whatever it is you call it, look at it by team and by feature set. While I happen to find that the total number is interesting, this gives me a whole lot more information about where the product is, and that's what I want to know. Aside from the demos, right? If you're always integrating, if you're always demoing, you have a different perspective on this also. Now, so when I think about Agile and Lean program management scaling, I think about trusting teams to do their own work. I think about teams releasing often to see their progress and invite collaboration. And the more frequently we release, the more exploration we can afford, because it's Agile and Lean all the way down. I hope that we can stay in touch. I write the Pragmatic Manager newsletter. That's the link. I hope that you decide to link with me on LinkedIn. And the book is in ALPM off my website. That's a short link. So I will stop the share and we can have more of a conversation there. Who has questions?
I don't see another question. I don't see other questions. Thank you so much, Johanna. That's a great presentation. We thank you so much to be here for us, for everybody to share your experience and your background. Karina, do you have something to add?
Yeah, Johanna, I really want to thank you for being our guest speaker today. You're really amazing. So you're really great facilitator. You're one of the best ones we had so far. you're really great, like monitoring the chat and answering questions. And I feel that you have so much knowledge inside yourself. So feel free to come again. We really liked what we learned today. And everyone, feel free to comment on the top of what I'm saying. If you feel that way, don't hesitate just to say to Johanna how great she is. You're amazing,
Well,
Johanna.
Thank you. But let me talk a little bit about why an organization would want to adopt SAFe. Right now, in my experience, SAFe is an excellent rub. Right, you iterate at the beginning. It's the inception, elaboration, all that stuff. That's an iterative approach to understanding the requirements, and then you move into deliveries. So, if you are concerned about your culture, if you think you cannot create an agile culture, maybe SAFe is the best thing you can do. I don't find SAFe particularly agile. I think you plan for way too much and you don't get feedback often enough, right? And needing everybody in the same room, even if it's the same virtual room, I think that that's just not, it's not agile enough for me. However, if that's the best you can do, yeah, fine. But don't confuse yourself. Just because it has agile in the name does not mean it's particularly agile. It's not particularly focused on autonomy at the team level. It's not particularly focused on the customer. It's very focused on management and what management wants. So if you think that that's the best thing you can do, go for it. But if you really want agility at the program level for a product, I strongly recommend you think about more agile and lean ways to think about how you create the culture for agility.
All right, thank you, Johanna. So we have a lot of comments in the chat. Yes, that is really true. Regarding SAFe, this is really a fact. Makes sense. It's a nice session. Thank you, Johanna. Again, you simplified things. We love you, Johanna. So a lot of we love you, we like you. So someone is saying that they would love to have another session on backlog burn-ups. That's the most informative snapshot I have heard. So maybe something to think about, Johanna.
Well, I have an Agile metrics presentation, right? And that work at the team level and at the program level. So I am happy to offer that to you at some point. Not next month, because I'm busy.
Of course.
Yeah. So you're not going to get me back in December, but I am. I'm happy with that. So I will share. I have a previous version of this deck on Speaker Deck. I will put this version on Speaker Deck also. And if you somebody asked about the books. So the Agile and Lean Program Management book, my Create Your Successful Agile Project book also has a bunch of metrics. And I talk about metrics from a different perspective for the Modern Management Made Easy. Those are much more management-focused metrics, but it's all about how you think in flow efficiency. One of the really big problems we have in the Agile community right now is that organizations are still focused on the individual as opposed to the team. So I am all about the team. So that's why when I said here about the product backlog burn-up chart, that if you have teams working on feature sets or teams working on products, right? If you start to measure what you want more of, which is released features for a given product, that's a program level Agile measure. So that's why I'm very focused on what does management need to see from the various teams. And it's not ever earned value. It's never story points. I mean, if you still want to use story points in your work and you find them valuable, that's fine. But cycle time is much, much more valuable. Looking at the aging of all the work in progress, right? That's much more valuable. So thinking about what measures you really need and what will give you information and what will give your managers information. I think that that's right. Managers might not understand what to ask for. So they ask for stuff that's easy to collect, not necessarily the stuff that's useful, right? So we can educate our managers.
You have some person, they said they would like to have just a session for Agile Matrix.
So Oscar, you and I will talk about that, and I will next year, right? Next year after.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah. After. So I'm very excited. My younger daughter is getting married in 3 weeks.
Wow.
There's lots of stuff going on. Yeah. So so I'm very happy. But that means that from now until the wedding, and even after, kind of wacko here. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's it. All right. Thank you, Johanna, again. And we hope to see you early next year, as soon as possible.
All right. We will, Oscar and I will have a little email conversation, and
I know.
we will figure it out.
No problem. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining. Have a wonderful day, evening.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.